Well, I would love to say hello to everybody. My name is Shavon Gartrell. I am the co-founder of Ripple Effect 22, but my husband is really the star of the show today, and so I'm going to let him take this show away. Maybe I'll come back later, but he is
Yes.
the mastermind. I am just the lovely, what do you call me, assistant.
No, she's way smarter than me. It's just true.
Exactly, but I'll be back later.
All right. So let's get here. All right. So let me. For those of you, there are some people here that I know. There are some that I've never met before. So I'm going to introduce myself. You met my beautiful wife, Siobhan. It's her up there too. Of course, it'd be weird if it was another family that I was showing. But so these are my three kids. This is Grayson, Jace, and Joelle. Joelle she's 3. She turns 4 next week, July 3rd. So happy birthday. She's awesome. But my kids are great. So they are fourth generation San Franciscans. I was born and raised here. My wife also was born and raised here. I am technically a second generation, but because of my wife being a third generation, they get to be fourth. So we are crazy unicorns in San Francisco that we're like, if you can't raise a family here, I think there's something wrong with your family dynamic more than it is a city. Anyway, yeah, that was just a thing out to everybody who's always like, it's so hard to raise family here. We enjoy it. We're having a great time. And I turned out great. No, I'm very humble. All right, so I want to get into what what I'm here for. Paul, thank you so much. Thank you everyone from We Heart SF for giving me an opportunity to share. So let me talk about a little bit about Ripple Effect 22. We like to just call it RE22 because it really shortens it. Um, it's a purpose development program for youth with an emphasis in mentorship. So this program we've been doing this program for the last, almost 9 years now. And in those 9 years, we have had the amazing just blessing to be able to impact and mentor over 1,500 kids in San Francisco Bay Area. It's in this year. That was just this year. Siobhan's making sure I did this right. Just this year was 50. Yeah, we jumped really fast. These are just some pictures of some of the things that we've done just from this past year. Some of the things and events, graduations. That was one of my favorite right here, because there's a lot of graduations this year. I'm being invited to a bunch of them. Some of which I think there's one of the students is here. There she is. That were part of that graduation. So also, I want to give a shout out. We have some students from our program here, from the ministry that we are part of as well. Oh, I skipped something. I'm also a youth pastor. I want to make sure you guys catch that too. So I'm a youth pastor at Glad Tidings, and so we have some of our youth that are in our ministry as well as in our program. So they are all here, and mentors and assistants that are here, and Pastor Michael. There's a lot of great people here. Savannah, I see you guys. You guys are great. So at the end of this talk, if you want to get to know some stuff, don't just ask me. Like, ask them. They're the ones who went through this. They're the teenagers and young adults that have actually been a part of this. So I will have them stand up at the very end. All right, let's get into this. What is mentorship? And I think a lot of people, when you hear mentorship, you think about the process of basically holding someone's hand, walking them through a process, and that is true. That is a big part of mentorship. But I like to break it down into just these 4 things. Mentorship is guidance, mentorship is advice, mentorship is feedback, and mentorship is support. So once again, mentorship is guidance, mentorship is advice, feedback, and support. So our vision for RE22 is this. We want youth to help them to prepare them to pursue and fulfill their purpose. That is our big thing. And the best way we feel like to do that is through mentorship. So I'm going to tell you about my own mentorship journey before I even get going. So, all right, I don't know how to do it. I'm the one right there next to the coach. That's me. This is me in 7th grade. I was playing baseball at Upper Noe in San Francisco. We were the Zephyrs. Um, and at this time, in 7th grade, I happened to be one of the better players on my team. Like, my parents, I have amazing family, but we were in the, I'd say, low to mid socioeconomic level of San Francisco at the time. My dad was a BART train operator. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. We lived in Lakeview on the other side of the city. And, but I was blessed to be, like I said, number one, having really good parents. Number two, being born and raised in the city. Well, I'm going out of order because the first thing is my parents were very strong Christians. I was at church all the time. People used to make a joke that I was born in a baptismal pool, um, because so my dad was a choir director and my mom we were just always at church. So other than being at church and at school, I was on the baseball field. And in 7th grade, there was a umpire. This umpire's name, Dan Pino. Dan Pino, that's him with his son, who's now adult. This is crazy. Dan was just this umpire in San Francisco for the Park and Rec, and I'm playing with Upper Noe. At the end of the game, he comes up to me, and he asked me this question. He goes, "Hey, man, you're really good." And I was like, "Thanks, man." Like, I was very humbled then too. And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." And he's like, "Hey, where are you going to high school?" In 7th grade, at the time, the high school I was going to, or was planning on going to, was the same high school that my parents went to. They graduated from Lincoln, and that's where they were going to go. And I was like, "Going to Lincoln because that's the neighborhood school. That's where I'm supposed to go." I told him that. He goes, "Nah, you can't go there." I was like, "What?" He goes, "You can't go there." I was like, "Why?" He goes, "Because if you go to Lincoln, no college baseball scout or pro scout comes and watch public school baseball. They watch football, they watch basketball, they don't watch baseball. They don't come out and scout from these schools. If you go there, you'll get lost. Nobody will see you." He says, "So you need to go to either Sacred Heart Cathedral, St. Ignatius, or Reardon." And I was like, "Wait, aren't those all private schools?" He's like, "Yes." And I was like, "We can't afford that." And he goes, "Hey, can you get your parents to come down? Are they here?" And I was like, "Okay." So I bring my parents down. I gesture for them to come down. My mom sees that the umpire is talking to me. She thinks I did something wrong. She's ready to spank me in front of everybody. And I was like, "No, no, 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 no. I didn't do anything wrong." Like, he was like, "No," just because she was like out to be mad at Dan. Like, he did something. Like, he's like, "No, this is a good thing. Your son's good, really good player." And so then my mom's whole like countenance changed. She was like, "Yeah, he's amazing," you know. And so she she comes up and he tells her, he says, "Where do you want your son to go to school? Go to high school?" My dad's also there. And they say he's going to Lincoln like us. And he says the exact same thing. He can't go there. He needs to go to SISH or Reardon. That's where he has to go. Both of them, they respond the exact same way. Those schools are private schools. We don't have the funds for that. And then he says this to them again. He says, "If you want your son to be able to go where I think he can go, he needs to go to one of these 3 schools." And that was it. That was the conversation. That night, my parents went home. We sat down. I have 2 other siblings. We sat at the dinner table, my brother and my sister with me, and they said, "Okay, Steph, we've made a decision." And I was like, "Okay." And they said, "If you get your grades over a 3.5, at the time I was a 2.5. I was like a very average student. If you get your grades over a 3.5, we will do everything we possibly can to, and you get into one of these three schools, we'll do everything we possibly can to make sure that we can afford and pay for you to go there. So all of a sudden, I'm like, all right, I got a reason to actually care about school because I didn't. And so now I'm doing well in school. I get my grades up. The funny thing about being in San Francisco, and if you haven't noticed, I'm black. There are, I don't know if you can see, I'm black. There is like grants and certain things for to go into those schools if you are over a 3.5. I had no clue. Not only do I get into SHC, I am able to cover most of the costs based off of me getting my grades up higher. And I always say this, I say this to even the students, and they've heard me tell this story before. I say this all the time. It's not because I'm smart. It was because I knew why I was working. I knew why I was going to school. And that changed my life. Long story short, I went from high school to the University of San Francisco, from the University of San Francisco getting drafted by the Chicago White Sox and then being traded to the Atlanta Braves. I played in the White Sox and the Braves organizations for 9 years, and then God called me out of that. But I want to get back to this person one more time. Dan Pino, I bring him up a lot because when I was 3 years ago, I was added to my high school's Hall of Fame, and I had him come as a special guest for me. Because I said, without this man speaking up and telling me and pointing me in the right direction, giving me advice, giving me guidance, giving me feedback and support, I wouldn't have been able to get to this point. Oh, I went too fast. That, for me, is also mentorship. I like to call mentors this. Mentors are the human GPS system for their mentee. That's what we are. Our job is to point them in the right direction based off of our past experiences, based off of the things that we know which way to go. We guide them. We say, all right, 100 feet, turn left. 50 feet, turn left. But I always say this, though, too. The mentees are the drivers. Because it is up to you to actually make that turn. Our job is then when you miss that turn, we say, recalculating, make a U-turn, recalculating. That's my GPS voice. So as mentors, to point people in the right way, to support them, to give them feedback and advice, that's what mentorship is. So now what we're going to do, because I don't like just talking all the time, we are actually going to do what I do in my program. So you guys enjoy being a part of the program. Here he goes. So we're going to do this. We have some paper and we have some pens. This is called a cryptogram. All right. So when you guys get all these things, I'll give you guys a second. All right. You guys have, I'm going to give you, usually I give a lot of time, but I'm going to give you guys, because you guys are smart and all this stuff, I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes. 5 minutes to solve this. All right? But give me a second, because I'm going to let you guys know some stuff, okay? In order to solve this in 5 minutes, I am going to give you the keys to solve this. It is 3 letters. Are you guys ready? So I will write this down. V, as in very. V equals D, as in dog. V equals D. All right. X as in X-ray equals U as in umbrella. Ella. A. I'm just kidding. I'm not a youth pastor. I can't sing that song. All right. X equals U. And then the last letter. Q equals E. So here's the last thing. In order to get this, I am going to, you guys, like I said, you have 5 minutes. But after 1 minute, I'm going to set my timer. Each one of you is the ability to ask me one yes or no question. Just one. After 1 minute. You guys got it? And then that's yes. Go ahead, Scott. Each individual person, one yes or no question. There's only 5 minutes to finish it, so you can't get it. Yes. All right, you ready? All right. Hey Siri, set my timer for 1 minute. All right, go. It's up. It's not a yes or no question. Yes. Yes. No. Yes. No. Yes. Kinda. I don't know if that's yes or no. Middle? Yeah. Huh? No. No. Yes. Three more minutes. No, sorry, 2 more minutes. I like how I can tell which one of the youth have actually remembered what this is that have done this. Some of them who've actually done this already are still trying to figure out how they're doing it. They're like, what was it? Anybody else? Yes. Yes. Yeah. No. One more minute. I like how whoever's seeing me in the video is just like, what is going on right now? Contrary to popular belief, I do not have ADHD. 1 minute. Yes. But I answered a question of yours already. You're breaking the rules. Okay. I will give grace. I am a Christian. 1 minute. Yes. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Raise your hand if you finished. What? Oh, come on. All right. Here we go. I'll put you guys out of your misery. Here's the answer. Do not judge me by my successes. Judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again. This is a Nelson Mandela quote. This is also one of our lessons that we teach, which is called grit. Grit is about persevering through obstacles. Raise your hand if you got frustrated because okay. Raise your hand if some of you are like, I quit this. I don't have enough time, right? Because you didn't know you had enough time. Here's the thing. Most of us give up on stuff because we feel like the problem is too hard to solve. We don't have enough time. It's too big. I don't have enough information. When in actuality, what we needed to do is work together as a team. Because here's the thing. After the 1 minute, each and every single one of you could have come up and asked, what does each letter mean? Does this letter equal this? If you guys just went through one at a time, y'all would have finished in 2 minutes. But all of you turn this into a competition. And that's what happens with life. We think life is a competition. We think we're supposed to solve problems on our own. But even for this group who is here to solve problems together, you didn't realize that was the key. I told you I was going to give you the key. That was the key. So let me move forward. In order for us to actually deal with problems and understand how to solve the problem, because us together, let's say the problem here is to eradicate homelessness in San Francisco. The way that we're going to be successful in this is if we decide to work together. Don't hide your paper. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't want to be the first one just because you want the credit. We all need to work together. So, but before we do that, we have to understand what the problem that we are facing is. So, what is the problem? Do you guys know what ACEs is? All right. If you don't know what it is, it's right there. So, people on the video, you guys can see this. ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. So adverse childhood experiences include any type of traumatic experiences, abuse at the home, neglect, racism, bullying, substance abuse issues. All of these things are a big part that leads to an issue within children. When they have these type of experiences, it leads to depression, anxiety, bad grades, failure to go to school, skipping school, failure to understand what their purpose is, all sorts of stuff. But here's the part that was really crazy because about ACEs, and you guys are like, man, you run a youth nonprofit, and we're really focusing on eradicating homelessness. Where's the connection? And Paul made a really, really good point when he was saying, well, we're trying to get it at the very beginning. We're trying to stop it at the root. But I'm going to make it clear for how much at the root you could stop this by working with teens and by working with youth and focusing on them. 89% of all homeless in San Francisco have said that they have had some sort of ACEs event that has led to their homelessness. 89. That wasn't just in San Francisco. That wasn't just in California. That was in the United States of America. And then it said 49% also had more than 4 ACEs type experiences. So half of them, so 89%, almost 90% of them went through at least one. But almost half of them had some multiple amounts of traumatic experiences that they experienced when they were kids. So let's talk about some of the most challenging things that are just happening in California. This is a big, scary graph right here. Just letting you guys know, this is really scary. So children die more frequently from overdoses in California compared to the U.S. overall. Meaning, now we're focusing from the United States to California. And we are dealing with the biggest issue with overdose and drugs. The following things are happening in this field. They find that a lot of these students have dealt with, or children have dealt with, lack of support. They come from broken homes. They have educational inequities, instability, mental health issues, and they've dealt with poverty. But what is the solution? So let's get back to our program. We have our 4 pillars. This is our 4 pillars. We call this, it's alliteration, so you can remember it. Purpose, plan, pair, and path. This is how we operate within our program at RE22. Number 1, we believe that every single student, every single person, not just student, all y'all too, are here for a purpose. There is a purpose in your life. There is a plan for your life. Then we pair our students with a mentor that's in the field that they feel like they're called to, so that they're on the path not just to success, but to significance. The reason why we say not to just success, but significance is because success is subjective. I've done this so many times, and like I said, we work with over 1,500 kids. I've asked them this question: what is success for you? Some of them go with a certain amount of money that ranges from hundreds of thousands to millions to, some people say, billions. They won't feel like a success until they got to billions. But others will be like, if I get Jordans. Others will say, if I have a PS5. Others will say, if I have a good family. Others will say, hopefully most of them will say this, if I'm following the will of the Lord, because that's what I really want them to do. But because it's so subjective, I don't want us to focus on success. I want you to focus on significance. Because significance isn't subjective. It's literally how you make other people feel. The impact that you've made on their life. So let me talk about this story real quick. This is going to be a faster one. I like telling stories more than I just like giving statistics. So here's a picture of, let's call this student Mark and Stephen. I could talk about Stephen. He's one of our mentors. He's an adult. So Mark, this was about 7 years ago when we first started the program. Mark was sent to me from his school counselor because Mark had tried to harm himself twice. And everything that they were doing with Mark wasn't really working. Mark's dad had died tragically, and he was the oldest of 3. And his mom was kind of depending on him to kind of be the man in the family, the man of the household. And so he was buckling under the pressure. And not only was that the issue, Mark also was getting bullied because Mark is a very eclectic person. He's not like he wasn't into sports and all that stuff. So he was kind of like, he would say in his own terms, he was geeky. And so people would bully him. So this led to depression, which led to him trying to harm himself twice. So his counselor sent him to me. I met with Mark. I started talking to him, and I started asking him this question. Well, what do you like to do? Like, what do you like? Because he wasn't really talking. And he goes, I like movies. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, just to watch them? He goes, no, I want to make a movie. I want to write a movie, and then I want to direct. And so as Mark was my bad. As Mark was talking to me about what he was interested in, I started going around asking people if they knew anybody who was in the movie business. And one of our pastor's friends, his name's Pastor Mike, he had a parishioner who had just finished film school. That was Stephen. Stephen had finished film school and was now working in Atlanta on one of the Marvel films. So I reached out to Stephen and I go, hey, Stephen, nice to meet you. My name's Stefan. It's an easy name to remember. Would you like to mentor Mark? So Stephen was like, yeah. And so this was before Zoom became a big thing. So it was on FaceTime and Skype. And they were just Skyping back and forth and FaceTiming. And Stephen starts giving him like books to read and how to do certain things. And like, hey, and like, this is how you write a screenplay. And they're just working on this stuff. Here's the part that changed everything. So remember, I told you about ACEs. Mark had ACEs. He had an adverse childhood event. His dad died. Then he's getting bullied, so that's 2. Now he's dealing with depression and issues and all sorts of stuff. And then he tried to harm himself twice. But something changed in Mark all of a sudden. Mark had hope. Because for the first time, somebody was pouring into him so much so that everything that he thought that he could not ever accomplish, he was like, I can actually do this. So Mark starts getting more confident. In this picture, Stephen was able to come into San Francisco. He flew into San Francisco, honestly, just to meet with Mark. And we had it set up because, like I said, remember, Mark was getting bullied at school. So we had it set up where, like, hey, you're going to meet with him at school in front of everybody. You're going to come in and be like, hey, I'm coming here to meet this one kid. That was the funny part was all these kids thought Mark was so cool just because that happened. So he stopped getting bullied. But so Mark is now in college, and Mark is doing really well and has not harmed himself since. The reason why I bring this up is we didn't start RE22 to be a suicide prevention program. We started RE22 to be a purpose development program to help people understand that there is a purpose for their life. But the thing is, as soon as people understand that there is a purpose, they understand their why, they won't go into the things that will be harmful. They can persevere through certain things. When they understand that they can ask for help, that they're not supposed to be doing life alone, they can solve a cryptogram in less than 5 minutes. So why mentor? Let's see. There we go. So, number 1, mentorship improves interpersonal skills with parents, teachers, and peers. I think it's a thing that is 54%. I think that's the right number. 54% of kids who are mentored graduate. Not just graduate, sorry. They graduate and aspire to higher education. Like, not just graduating high school. They're like, oh, I can achieve and go to like Ivy Leagues and all sorts. They go high type college stuff where I'm not smart enough to go. It enhances self-esteem and confidence. I told you that story about Mark. Contributes to the better academic performance and increases high school graduation. There it is. That's the rate. Fosters healthier relationships and lifestyle choices. Oh, wait. Let me go back to that one. There was another thing. 40% of kids who are being mentored do not go into substance abuse issues. 40% don't drink or before their age or do drugs. It's a crazy thing. There's a lot of stuff that happens when you don't think of why you're doing it, but there's really good benefits because of it. And it decreases the likelihood of initiating of drugs and alcohol use, and it helps develop stronger and more enduring relationships. So I want to show you this thing because this is a funny um, graph. Not funny, it's interesting. Funny was the wrong word. Interesting, because you would think this graph, after I talked about the problem, is showing more problems, right? Because you're like, wait, depression increases when you get 12 to 17. Anxiety increases when you get 12 to 17. Behavior somehow decreases, but increases when you're 6 and 11, right? But I want you to check something. Why is it low in 3 to 5? I want you guys to answer. Like, somebody want to answer that question? Yes. Puberty is a part of that, but why? Yes. You are teaching more. You are actually involved more. You are supporting, you are nurturing ages 3 to 5 way more than when you get to 6 and 11, and definitely way more than when you get to 12 to 17. Yes, there's just all sorts of stuff. I think it's just a big part of it is when you're 3 and 5, we realize that they can't do stuff yet. So we help them more. When you get to older ages, you're like, you should do these things, which is true. But then all of a sudden we pull back from actually supporting and nurturing when we're supposed to continue to stay supportive and nurturing. So if we can do that, it won't jump as fast. It won't jump as high. The whole thing is it takes a whole village type of thing. That's where the support, the nurture, the aspect comes from. Where, yes, it is tough to be a parent. And as you know, I have kids. But when you have support, just like we did with this whole grit exercise, more support, many hands make for light work. And that's what we need when we come to working with each individual student. So here's our way that we do this real quick. I'm going to try to go through this fast. We have our 3 ways of doing this in our own program. We have the WAVE, the Ambassador Program, and the Effect. The WAVE is our program as a group curriculum. That is what we do when we go into schools. So we partner with a bunch of different schools and youth organizations where we give our whole group program, which you just saw one of the lessons, which was great. The way that we do this is we partner with teachers and mentors. We break them up into small groups, as you can see, and then they help teach the lesson. So that is how we're able to get and work with 1,500 kids with a very small team. Then we have the Ambassador Program. The Ambassador Program there's actually members here. Actually, could you guys stand up? So we got Leona, Janelle, Rodney, and Jeremiah. So the Ambassador Program is being able to take our program into high schools. And they are some of the leaders they've started different clubs within their own high schools. And it's been amazing. So we also train them, because it's one thing to train an adult, but if we're training teenagers to do this stuff, then they get the bigger impact on their own schools. They're bigger influences than we are. Then we have the Effect. Thank you, guys. The Effect is one-on-one mentorship. And that is where you get the Stephen to Mark type of relationship. So lastly, these are just some testimonials. I want to have the first one here. That's Xavier. Xavier, I was working with him since he was 10 years old. Xavier started out, the first time I worked with him, he had straight Fs. I don't know how you have that in elementary school, but he did. But he just graduated with honors and he's now going to SF State. We have another student who has been with us for you guys can read this stuff. I just want to say, it's really funny too, because this student, the first time she ever met me, she cussed me out. But the funny part is now she asked me and my wife to be her godparents. And so there's some students you'll work with that'll start off very rocky relationships. Be more stubborn than they are. They will, the heart will soften. You will make an impact, I promise. Give it time. And then lastly, remember I told you the story about how my own life, I had a Dan Pino who all he had to do was point me in the right direction. This is Isaiah. Isaiah's at UC Berkeley. His whole goal is to be the future mayor of San Francisco. I literally worked with him for 3 months. Then he wrote a whole letter to me, this whole email saying without me working with him, he wouldn't have got there. I was like, I just barely did it. I just pointed you in the right direction. And then it hit me. I was like, that's exactly what Dan did for me. So these are different organizations that we partner with. And this is how you can partner with us. And there's donations and volunteerings. And before I go into the volunteering and different places that you can do stuff, July 22nd through August 2nd, we have our Ambassador Boot Camp. So if anybody would like to be a part of that, let us know. What that is we're working with those students that started these clubs in their high schools. We're really pouring into them. We have 25 students for that. Yes. What else we got? Okay. And Redefine Camp. August, that's another big thing that we do every single summer. That is August 1st through the 3rd. They overlap. And then there's other ways when we go into schools and everything. There'll be more dates when we're actually in the schools years back, where we go into high schools and different programs and volunteer. And you can join us with that as well. And done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stefan. Does anyone have any questions? Wow, what a group we have today. We have a full house. Anyone have any questions? We have a few minutes left. Yes, hold on one second.
I'm just curious about the student you had mentioned that was being bullied and got interested and was interested in movies, and I was wondering, like, if you were able to coach him through the bullying and kind of like how you deal with that aspect of it, because it seems like that's almost like a whole other campaign of anti-bullying.
So that is a completely different campaign. The cool part about that, and I'm saying cool because there was something cool about it, I was bullied. Even though I'm 6'3" and everything, I wasn't always this big. So I was able to, when we first started working with Mark, before Steven came into the picture, it was just me and him. And I worked with him for about a good 2 months before I brought in Steven, just so I can help him through that process. And we just talked about the stuff that I had to deal with as well. And I was like, look, if I was able to make through it, and I told him all the horror stories and the stuff that happened with me. And I was like, I'm still here. I'm good. That is a thing that built me up. That helped him too, for him to be able to say, hey, there's somebody else who went through this that is thriving. It's in the Bible, it says that we are empowered by the words of our testimonies. And so I was able to give my testimony to him, and he was getting empowered through that.
We also had in that school, one of our friends was the school counselor, and she was a therapist. So she also likely helped him through that. I'm pretty sure Rachel did help him through some of his bullying.
That's why they're first started.
Right.
Hello. Thank you so much for the presentation, brother. My name is Louis Johnson. I'm here representing an organization called Unite, where we empower students to pursue careers in STEM. And I want to ask two things. One, what is your services that you offer? And two, I saw you say, how do you partner? But I didn't see how do we actually do that. But what services do you guys offer to your students, and how do we partner with you?
Okay, there's I would say the two biggest parts of the service that we offer are we get into schools as a group curriculum. So that's like we partner and kind of give them like this big, huge thing where I would call it we call it our purpose development curriculum. But then the next part, which is I think where you're more, is the effect is our one-on-one mentorship side. And that's where we work with a student that comes from the big side that gets we call it kind of our mentorship funnel. And that because we get these kids who are really, really interested and want to go further. And so we do work with them and do walk with them through processes. One of our mentors, Michael Stoutmeyer, he worked with one of our students so much so that this student was the first to ever graduate from high school in his family. And that was without us even forcing that. This is just stuff that he just was like, I'm going to do this. And so we try to walk and give a certain type of service to each student that's based off of what their needs are. Sometimes that's hard. I'm not gonna lie, but that is basically does that work with you? Does it make sense? Or yeah.
Yes, that does. And also, I just want to offer to say, so I'm an astrophysicist. My friend here is an engineer. So if there's anybody that's in y'all group that want to be an astrophysicist, scientist, engineer, anything in
think we
that
would
field,
love.
I would love to.
Yeah.
I want to talk. Yes.
So I want to be an astrophysicist.
All right,
I'm just
well,
kidding.
Yeah,
No.
we can still do that. We can still
I
do
think
that.
we can link up after, because one thing we would love to have is we do these virtual mentorship sessions where we have somebody virtually mentor our ambassadors. A lot of our students don't know what's out there, and so we want to give them exposure to people like you. So if you guys have any interest, any of you have interest in mentoring at all, just give us your information and we can take it down and we will add you to our list and we'll contact you.
Yes.
So, what kind of people would make great mentors? Who are the people that you're looking for? What kind of mentoring really helps? And how could we get involved?
I honestly, I think anybody could be a mentor, but I definitely think that a person who has a heart for the students, but I would also say selfishly also wants to leave a legacy. I would say if you want to actually make a difference and change the world, mentor, because you're leaving not just you're leaving a piece of yourself to someone that helps them grow to become something even bigger than what we even could imagine. That's why we call this ripple effect. Like, it starts as a small drop, but can spread to, we don't know where it can start. One of our biggest values that we say all the time is better opportunities lead to better choices, and better choices lead to better opportunities. So if we're able to, if you have access to anything that a student may be able to benefit from, that's exposing them and giving them better opportunities. So then that same student can make better choices and hopefully stem the tide from them making really bad decisions and bad choices that will lead them to us having to figure out where we're going to place them, how we deal with homeless issues, all those things that we see going on. It just takes one small act. It's really good. And then I would also say time. Time is a big part. If you can do what we try to do is limit it as much as we possibly can, but we don't, not limit it. We try to make it easy for you guys as much as we can, but you guys, you can go as far as if you want to literally work with a student every single day, that's on that, and you, the student, the parent, we're good. But what we want to say is at a minimum of meeting with a student at least twice a month. And that's the minimum. But also being very, very consistent. Some of these students have already dealt with abandonment issues. And if you show up and then you start working with them and then you bounce, you're just adding to those issues. So when you work with them, at least be like, 1 to 2 years, I'm going to do this. And like I said, it doesn't have to be like two times a month, but at least you're consistent so that that student can like set their watch to it. Does that make sense?
So much of this stuff correlates with a lot of the stuff that we're doing out on the street. I think there's a lot of consistency and with our outreach program, just building those relationships. I think mentoring can come in lots of flavors. If you have a lot of time, I think it's really important. But even if you have a little time, I think a lot of that is building out that network and allowing them to see the potential for other places. Maybe you could speak about how you think some of the lessons you've learned correlates with some of the outreach for folks that are on the street or in desperate situations.
Yeah. The biggest lesson that I've learned, I would say, I would almost call them just experiences, because sometimes when I first started this program, you don't know what you don't know. And I started working with these students and then starting to find out some of these students have housing issues. Some of these students do like, hunger issue, food insecurity. Thank you. Like, you don't know what you're going to actually get involved with and how you can help. And the biggest thing that I've learned from this process is not just networking with and finding individuals to help, it's finding other individuals who can help with me. So we partner with, like, one of them was up there, was Turntable, Robin's here. We partner with different organizations, we partner with different churches and groups, because we can't be, I'm not a catch-all, but I do know people who can do certain things that can help certain groups. I do know where to send them, and that's the biggest thing that I think I learned from this.
Hi. Such a wonderful talk. I'm sorry, I got caught off guard.
It's okay.
I head up the recovery DAO here at SF, and I was really interested to hear more about the be more stubborn than they are. And here's why. We like, how much do you lean in and how much do you give space?
Mhm.
Right? We're going to work with these 20 women as they're coming out of long-term recovery programs. All of them have had ACEs, right?
Yep.
And we spent this last week talking to Brian Greenberg about groups, and he really emphasized this idea of more carrots than sticks.
Mhm.
And I want to emphasize that in our program. And I don't know, how much do we give, and how much do we actually allow them to come to us? So where is the stubborn line?
That is a great question. Okay, so most of the actually, me and Robin have had this conversation. You can only do so much, and one of the biggest things that we do within our program is we give everybody the option to be a part of every aspect of what we do. Every single student. There are times in our youth group and our nonprofit in which I would be like, I have the opportunity to do this one thing on the youth group side, but I haven't offered this to the nonprofit side, to the RE22 side, so I'm going to offer this here. But whoever takes a bite of that carrot, whoever comes, who can't lead a horse to water, but you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink type of aspect. That the stubborn aspect for me is that I will keep on leading that horse to water. I am not going to stop like saying, here's a well, you thirsty horse, drink this thing. Right? I'm not going to stop doing that, but I am not going to force that horse's head down into the water, drown that thing. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's the aspect of for me is, and I have a ton of students. Like, the two of the ones on that picture in the testimonial side were the most frustrating students I've ever worked with in my life. Some of them know them. Like, they know the roller coaster ride that those two put me on. Yet, I didn't leave. I was like, hey, I'm still here. Hey, we're still here. Pastor Michael is one of the best. He gets super frustrated, but he's like, I'm still here. We're not going to leave. And that's the aspect of the stubborn aspect I would say we lean into, is that if you decide to go, we didn't push you out. We want you here. We want to help you. And as long as you communicate that over and over and over, like, hey, this is your decision. But recalculating, make a U-turn, just keep doing that, you'll be good.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Stefan and Shavon, for the incredible work that you do. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Very inspiring. It's so important.